Welcome to another episode of the Steal a Moment podcast with me, Michael LeBois. Today's guest is the wonderful and talented Maggie Roswell. Maggie is the voice of several of your favorite moms and or babysitters on The Simpsons, as well as some great appearances in films such as Pretty in Pink. Maggie and I talk about everything from the adventures of running into the guys in Spinal Tap, since she does work with Harry Shearer on The Simpsons, as well as how important improv really can be to voice acting. And, you know, just the joys of being able to do that during this time and having the opportunity to really bring out the best in these situations. We also have a nice interruption from my good, close personal friend and her daughter, Spencer. So thank you, Maggie, for being on with us today. And that was a fantastic interview. And I'm so happy to have had you here on the Steal a Moment podcast. Things have been kind of slow on the new end. We are now monetized on the audio version of this podcast. Thank you to Spreaker.com for being our new hosting site. If you guys have a podcast and you want to get a chance to get it out there to a reasonably large audience in a short period of time, check out Spreaker.com. That is an unpaid advertisement. Coming up February 12th, Gunpowder Empire has a brand new single called Evil Within that will be out for you guys to consume on Spotify, on Apple Music, and anywhere. We are really excited about this one. It's been a fun project. Again, we worked with Taylor Hahn from Hahn Audio and Ted Jensen from Sterling Media to get that beautiful sound for you guys. And like I said, February 12th, check it out. But if you need some Gunpowder Empire before then, Sean and I have some acoustic videos coming up here shortly, including a throwback to the early 2000s and another really awesome cover that I'm super excited. I cannot wait to get out to you guys as soon as possible. If you haven't noticed, my location changed a little bit. We were having some construction in the apartment, so I am holed up in the guest room for the next couple of days, and hopefully we'll be back to our normal set here in the near future. Guys, we're stuck at 53 subs right now. My goal for the first half of this year is 100. So I want to see that double. We're going to try and get that number doubled, and I want to try and double it every 6 months if we can. So tell your friends, tell your moms, tell your cousins, tell everybody you know to come check out and subscribe to the YouTube channel on at Steal a Moment Podcast. For all of you listening, thank you guys so much. It's been a fantastic run here as we are now hitting the 25th episode. We are at a quarter life crisis right now. It's been fun to keep doing this. Also, this Sunday will be the debut of the Twitch channel. I'm actually going to be playing some games with Posichick, if you guys remember Posichick from the YouTube channel of the week a couple episodes back. We'll be down playing some Forest and maybe some Cuphead just to get some run time on that. I've been working on getting my Streamlabs set up and my Twitch everything. So that's twitch.tv/Daywalker1524. If you guys want to get on that, check it out. It'll be fantastic. And anytime I'm going to be trying to make it a Sunday stream where I'll be doing some play-by-play. I just created a team in NHL 21 that I will be running my season with, which is what I decided to do for that one. You guys, I hope you like the designs and the team play and everything. So I'm really excited about that as well. If you guys have any suggestions, people you want to hear, guests you want to see, we have some great bands coming up. Some current professional athletes, some more media people from the state of Colorado, and some other bands from across the world. They'll be up here on this podcast here in the next couple of weeks. So I greatly appreciate any suggestions you guys have, anything you guys want to see changed about the show as well. Besides me, of course, you're stuck with me. But with that being said, Maggie and I would like to steal a moment.
long book that I wanted to read for a long time. This is Frodo, Spencer's old dog. Okay, Frodo, you're going to have to take a powder. Come on.
Come on.
He says, but wait, hold on.
But I want to be in the interview too.
No, I want to be in the room. Come on. This is if you hear the door going, then that's I close it with a rubber band.
Yeah.
And then I always laugh because I'm just like, okay, well, I got nothing. Yeah. There's a dog over there trying to get in, trying to break in.
It's totally fine. Frodo needs to go to Mountain Doom. It's okay.
I saw your video that you did, your music video. That was cool.
Well, thank you.
Yeah.
It's fun.
I saw it, and Spence showed it to me, and I thought that was really great. I love that she said it was just the beginning of COVID, so you guys could be on the streets by yourself.
Yes.
I like that.
It worked out very nice. We actually shot it in 3 days. We did everything in 3 days. So
wow.
Yeah, the all the shots that were in the full band shots were done in a garage with trash bags essentially hung to the walls.
Right.
And the lighting is what changed everything. It made it look like a nice little dark warehouse.
I know, it was like this dark video. That's why I loved it. I thought it was really neat. Okay, I was just going to see if I could do that. Yes, I can.
Awesome.
Hello.
So I've started recording, just so you know, and
Okay.
I can edit anything we need to at any time.
Right.
Feel free to be like, we can't put that in. I'm okay.
We can't put that in there. God, no. Now, are those back there? Should I?
Nope,
Here,
you're
wait.
good.
Are you sure? Okay.
Yeah.
Let's go like this. In
There
case
you go.
people are distracted. All right. Fantastic. Brilliant.
Fantastic.
Right. What would you like to know?
How's everything going? How are you managing work in time of COVID? Are you able to work from home and still be able to record everything?
The great thing is that because, I mean, it's not great, it's COVID, but we already had a recording studio in the house. So a lot of the people in the show didn't. So they locked down LA. And so we were able to keep going. And some people like Yardley Smith was like going into the, closet to try to figure out where's the best place for me to do this. Julie Kavner, all these guys, nobody had anything in their house except probably Harry Shearer did because his wife is a singer. But so we've continued on, which has been wild and I'm so happy to be on the show. I mean, they throw me a bone every now and then, but I can say that I think it'll be this Christmas that is the Christmas show that may bring back Maud Flanders. It's going to be that show or somewhere around there. And then you also find out a lot about Miss Hoover in either this season or next season. We can never tell because they do it a year in advance.
Okay.
So that people will go, oh my God, what's it on to, what are you doing tonight? I go, I don't know. And then when I watch the show, I go, oh, I'm in this show. But, a lot of the times you're just kind of doing stuff, getting ready and all of that. And so it's been quite a thing. But it's been really good. And then we were able to do the Lincoln Project, which I just loved, which was for all you people that are not political, or maybe you are political, it was pretty much taking down Donald Trump, which was good for me. So if you want to cut that out, you can, but right now I'm good with it.
I'm good with
they
it,
can
don't
know
worry.
what my feeling is. If they were on my Facebook, they'd understand. But anyways, so those are all the things. So what else? What else do you want to know?
So interestingly enough, my dad has been a big supporter of the Lincoln Project. He sends me videos all the time.
Wow.
And has been a big proponent behind it, like pushing it and being very open about that. So thank you for being a part of it. That's fantastic.
Okay, so now look at this. I'm looking over here. Am I supposed to be looking right back?
You can look wherever you want. I look at the screen, so sometimes it looks like I'm looking at nothing.
And that's so funny because when we were doing it, sometimes we'll do Zoom where for The Simpsons, they will show me something if I'm doing additional dialogue. So then they'll show a little animation and then I'll do my stuff to it. But it's funny because they did it with Zoom. And so I was here was the microphone over here and I was still playing to the camera because I used to do a lot of film and television. In fact, this girl, Megan Buckley, who's fantastic, who does social networking, she is helping me put together everything, like all my new, I had headshots and all this stuff that I had taken because a lot of them were like 6 years old and I'd be going to these Comic-Cons and going, Yeah, no, it is me. No, really, it's so me. And then also, if you keel over, you don't want them using one of the scary shots.
Yeah.
And so I, when I would go to the cons, I have all these different things that I do. Well, also, I did on camera for so long that I have my own YouTube channel. And it's a Maggie Roswell channel on YouTube. And so they've got things like Happy Days, Laverne and Shirley, Mark and Mindy. And actually, Squiggy just passed away of Lenny and Squiggy. And there was a whole show where I play Michael McKeon, Lenny's girlfriend, his college girlfriend. So that's a very cool thing. But I did on camera for 1,000 years. So many people, because I've been doing the show almost for 33 years now, didn't realize that my whole other life was doing Lost in America, Pretty in Pink,
Midnight Madness,
all these different films that people didn't even realize that I was in. And then I remember people saying, going, "Oh my God, I saw you in this." And Spence, well, my daughter.
Yes.
When she saw me, she was like, "Mom, you were so young." And then I showed her there's one called Midnight Madness when I was like 27 years old. And it's so funny because I had been on this job and somebody said, "Hey, can you sign something for me?" So I just assumed it was going to be for Simpsons. And then they said, "Oh, no. And they handed me a little thing of Midnight Madness, which if you see it, it was one of before they got the big directors at Disney, they got all of us together. So David Naughton, who was I'm a Pepper, You're a Pepper from 1,000 years ago.
Yeah.
And Dan Blocker's son, Dirk Blocker. And then there was this newcomer called Michael J. Fox. And they played they did it just before they were going on strike for Screen Actors Guild, but we had a sanction to do it. So They just kept playing it all the time. So they go on a treasure hunt for all night. And so we were shooting from 7 at night till 7 in the morning, which was insane. If you knew me, I go to bed at 9, wake up at 6. So my face will be all smushy. And then they go, "Okay, Maggie's got to film. What happened to her makeup? She slept on it, sir." So it was pretty scary. But when Spencer saw Midnight Madness, she was like going, "Really, Mom? Really?" I said, "I know." And what ended up happening is when this kid gave it to me, he said, "Oh, well, this is a cult classic." I said, "What?" And he said, "Oh, I like Rocky Horror Picture Show." And he said, "Oh yeah." He said, "When we were in college, every time they found a clue, people would drink." So it was like all these things that you never know. You go, "Oh, okay, Midnight Madness. I'm a cult hero." But I have people write things to my character. I want to go, "Okay, I'm 68. My character was 26." So I'm just saying, she's a little older now.
A little more mature.
A little more mature. She's a more mature Donna now.
Yeah, I was looking back through your IMDb because that's what I do whenever I have someone who has one, because I don't. It was interesting to see.
Get one. You gotta get one.
I'll get one. I haven't done any.
So much stuff you're gonna do.
Yeah, I've got shorts. I've got stuff that I can do. I did some shorts at Colorado Media School, and when I was there, and did all of those things. So I have to throw all that on there. And the music videos.
Right.
I've had a song on Rock Band. Like, I've done some things. I've done some things in my 34 years.
See, that's, and that would be a great thing because, it's an establishment of stuff. And the reason I had the gal that's doing it for me, who could also do it for you, but the reason that she was doing that for me was because I just, you kind of let everything lag, and then people start looking you up, like even on IMDb, and I go, "I'm not looking for a job, I got a job." But I thought people look you up and they want to kind of see your background and IMDb Pro, they want to see all that stuff. So a lot of it just kind of goes to the wayside, and then you go, "Could you just populate this with things so I look like a person who's actually working?" But it's kind of crazy.
So is it convenient having a studio at home, since I know both you and your husband are in the voice acting world?
Right.
That makes it really easy to get jobs. If anybody needs somebody on an emergency status, let's say, they can call and be like, "Hey."
Well, see, on the Lincoln Project, we did a thing for Bill Maher, which we wrote, or they wrote, the writers wrote on a Friday, and then we were editing and stuff. And then it was, I did a takeoff on Sarah Palin. I can see, Russia from my house. So they had a thing for us to do early in the day, and it was on Bill Maher that night. And that's how the Lincoln Project felt, because we were doing it And both Hal and I worked for Lincoln Project, and we would literally be doing it, and then the next morning it would be on, or that night it would be on. So it was, I mean, it was immediate, because they were doing things immediately when things would happen. They would definitely work on that. And that's really great. And yes, it is exciting to end up doing that. And now the thing is that everybody, I mean, all my friends who are voice actors, their agents want them to have their own studio. There was a time when we were first working where they said, well, no, you're going to go to a studio to do it, because they thought they, you know, we would cut out the middleman of the agents. But so much has changed in voiceover now. You know, they can get somebody for $25 to do it. So then they go, why would I get her if I could get her or him or him? You know, it's just that kind of thing. But, you know, having a quality studio, and literally it's all Hal who does all of the stuff, because if he keeled over, I would like go, I need an engineer, please, because I stand in front of the computer and now the microphone, and that's it. But he has been able to do, he just finished a book, which if you interview him, he will tell you about. That's an amazing thing. He's doing audio imaging for narrating a book, and it's sci-fi, but it's also directed at people that like gaming. So it's a sci-fi book that he did, but he also did all the voices in it, and then did like some sound effects in it, which really brings everything to life when you're listening. So
oh, wow.
that's really going to be a great thing. But he was able to do all that here during COVID. So that's been quite a trip, you know? Mm-hmm. So, but anyway, so it's been wild. It's been really wild. And it's this whole time, I think, for everyone, makes you see who your friends are and who you really want to be with. And then everybody else, you kind of go, oh, I didn't see you. Oh, well, you know.
Yeah, it kind of helps you to prune the bottom of the tree and kind of realize who your circle is and the people that you care about. I have a studio essentially here as well. I have all the ability to record music in the apartment. The only thing I don't have is like deadening space, but that's because I don't have that ability right now. But I invested in some new products that will allow me the opportunity to have better quality audio production. So I'm a singer and a bassist, as you saw in the music video.
Right.
So I have the ability to do all of that here, and a supportive significant other who allows me to take that time to do those things. Yeah. Because it's not always the case.
Well, it is. And and Hal could probably help you with how to deaden the space with not too much. He could give you some input on how to do that, even where you are, and how you could put them off to the side and then bring them in to deaden the space. Yeah. But because there was, now people are literally going into their closet. I mean, I saw Audra McDonald from New York and somebody else that was big Broadway stars, and they were doing it on the inside of their closet, and that's how they audition. So yeah. It's
Jason Marsden, who's a voice actor. I had him on the show earlier, and he's like episode 4 or 5. We became friends over the last couple of years. I have other friends that are in the voice acting community that introduced me to him, which was really nice. He built a small space offset of one of his closets. So it's like a closet and then a door next to the closet. That's his recording space. And he loves it. He says it's great because he goes, the only downside is it's really hot because there's no air conditioning. So I have to open the door every once in a while to keep myself from overheating.
And that's the thing. They have some of those booths that you can get. But the problem is exactly the same with a booth. Unless you get a little better booth, then you can't breathe. And then if you have a fan in there, you're like, So we built a room inside of a room downstairs so that it was really soundproof. And even with the soundproof room, there's only so soundproof it can be. If the dogs are having their bones and dropping them on the floor, we have to put them in the garage. We have to sequester them. They must go away.
They must go away.
Dogs barking.
One of the other things, you mentioned that you did scenes, you worked on Lenny and Squiggy, and then you also work with Harry Shearer. How have you been do you work with Christopher Guest and get the Spinal Tap triple threat ever?
I know, I should have, because I work with Michael and Harry, and they are so great. And but I did, it was really funny because I was here in Denver and I walked into, Ocean Prime, I think, when it was still on downtown.
I live right next door to Ocean Prime, so it's still there.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
So that when I was just there, and so I walked in the bar, and I don't know, we were gonna have a drink, and so the bartender said, well, I don't know if you know Spinal Tap, but they're in the back of the restaurant, and no one was in there. So I walked back, I said, the Spinal Tap is here? My God, I must see them. And so then he started laughing. Everybody started laughing. And then I met Christopher, who is very interesting, I would say, because he's very deadpan. So it's kind of bizarre when you meet him, because Michael is so animated and Harry's pretty animated. And then you meet him and you go, right, all right, well, brilliant. I know you're brilliant, but I'm not getting anything off of you. And so there you go. I mean, there's so many people. There's like different people that you hear about too. John Goodman isn't like Laugh Riot Musical Delight. Julie Kavner is very low key and has a very subtle sense of humor. Mm-hmm. And what like people expect her to be like the characters that she's played on, you know, Valerie or any of the different things on Mary Tyler Moore and everything.
Yeah.
But she's very subdued, but really funny. I mean, she'll just come out with things and she's really funny. But see now, like back in the day, for the first 10 years, we were all on a sound stage, and we would do all the table reads on a sound stage. We would start doing the show. People would go up and rewrite the show and bring them down all day long. So that was kind of crazy. And we would do a table read on a Thursday, and then we would do this on a Monday. So everyone was all together, and most of the stars, every star that did the show in the first 10 years, we were all there. I wasn't there for Michael Jackson because I wasn't in that show, but I was definitely there for Elizabeth Taylor. And it was really funny because she walked in, she's really, really tiny, or she was very tiny.
Yeah.
And, but she had a big caftan on. So she was in, you know, one of her caftan moods, and she walked in and she has this perfume called Passion.
Yeah.
And so the second the door opened, at least soundstage, but she just smelled the passion. And then she came in with her little dog. And so all she was supposed to do was the voice when Maggie first spoke. And she went, Daddy, Daddy. And she goes, couldn't you get anyone to do this? And Daddy, so it was funny because she was overworking. And I said to one of the animators, who's like the head animator, I said, could you draw her? And he said, I don't do it. I said, draw her, come on. So then he was drawing her and her little dog. And she came up and said, well, if you're going to draw me, then you might want to draw this. And she put her hand out, and she had this big old honking diamond on it. I literally grabbed her hand and looked at it. It was as big as my head. And all of a sudden I'm thinking, all right, you're looking into her stunning eyes, and you got Elizabeth Taylor's hand in your hand. What are you doing? You know, but there were moments that you just kind of go, all right, then that's rather interesting. People I've met, you know, but some of the good, just so many great people did the show. But also, like when people would come on the show, like Danny DeVito came on to do something, and they're used to being in control of being on a set that they know. So they would all come in like the same way, like, okay, here I am. And it was just so funny to see them do what I would do when I would come onto a TV show, unless I was the star of the show. You know, there was a couple of ones. I did Tim Conway's show, mm-hmm. and there was one called Mac and Jamie Comedy Hour. And anybody that would guest on those shows, then we would definitely like make them feel really warm. Because I remember one of my first jobs was on MASH. And all the cast came up and said, hi, nice to meet you. Hi, I'm Alan Alda, all these things. And I just never forgot that, because I thought there's so many times you go in and you're so nervous, and then people are just, yeah, okay, stand over there. Okay, go. I had one dramatic one that I did. I forget which one, Jake and the Fat Man or something, like 1,000 years ago. But they had me do a crying scene. And so that was my first scene. And so I said, and they said, okay, we're going to do the crying scene first. Will you come up to her? And I went, oh my God. Well, I said, well, can you put, you know, like stuff in my eyes to make me cry? And they said, well, we could, except your next scene is before your husband dies. So I was so scared that when they said, okay, action, I started crying because I was horrified. And you know, because a lot of people, especially people that have done, you know, when they're doing daytime television and stuff, they can cry on cue. It's, you know, it's what you do all the time. Not so much me. I'm a comic, so I don't cry on cue.
And that's one of those other things I've always noticed is like comedians tend to have that freedom. Like they don't have to cry on cue. They can do what they need to do to make the scene funny by
Right.
improvising or creating structure through like making it funny by creating the moment. Whereas I
Right.
feel like drama is almost written to the moment.
Right.
How much leeway do you guys get on scripts? I mean, it's difficult, I guess, with animation, you kind of have to go word for word, but
Oh,
do
no,
you guys get
actually,
some improvisation
well,
room on The Simpsons?
yeah, there's been some, the writing is so brilliant, but it's like, little things like when I would go, oh, Nettie. And I just did that at one point, and it wasn't even, oh, Nettie in there. I just went, oh, Nettie. And they animated my character lifting her shoulders up, as Maud Flanders. And that was really fun. But you also see, it's moments that you can improvise a little. I know Dan Castaneda and I used to be in Sills and Company, which is an improv company. So I was improvising for about 10 years prior to coming to The Simpsons. So that's your first kind of thing, which is really hard because a lot of times when it's not as brilliant as the Simpsons scripts are, and even if you kind of add something in, if you go like this, and they go, okay, let's try it like that and then do this, But it's very, it's very freeing, except sometimes when I would be in a regular series and I'd be like adding a little something, then they would go, oh, no, just stick to the script. And the script wasn't so funny. So I had to be careful because a lot of times when I would go in for on-camera stuff, I'd be funnier in the room than the script was. So then I went, all right, maybe I don't want to do that. Maybe I want to put the funny into the script instead of being funny before I get in, schmooing them and going, she's really funny. She can't read that script, but she's good.
That's the kind of stuff I always have been interested about, is like the structure of an animated versus a live action. Cause I know that a lot of the shows that are super popular for my generation are like, The Office, Parks and Rec, Community,
Right.
And they have good, strong scripts that are built initially. And then you're allowed, like they allow the characters opportunities to improvise.
Right.
And I think that's something that is interesting about animation is you say that they kind of give you that freedom. They can animate you giving a little shrug or
yeah, exactly. I mean, that for Simpsons, they have been really so great about letting us feel much freer. But then you realize a lot of the guys, and you'll do a table read, maybe you'll add a little something, and then by the time you come back to do the script, then that will be in or something like that, which will be really fun. But when I did a movie, actually I did a TV series first with Ralph Bakshi. And he did Mighty Mouse, which when I was a kid, it's here I come to save the day. And then Ralph actually did Mighty Mouse. And they actually dropped the series from CBS because they said that he was snorting poppies underneath his cape. And, there was a whole thing.
Yeah.
But Ralph would not want us to look at the script before. He wanted us to basically cold read it. So it was really kind of wacky and bizarre to just cold read the script, like open it up, and they wouldn't get the script before. Now, if I hadn't been a good cold reader or an improviser, it'd be insane. But it's kind of like when we were doing Tim Conway's show on camera, Tim would like start to do sorts of stuff that he had done on Carol Burnett show, and we were like, all righty, never saw that in rehearsal, but he'd do it in front of the audience. So Miriam Flynn and I, who were on the Tim Conway show, we had both been improvisers. She was at Second City, and I'd been with Harvey Lembeck in LA and improvised for a long time. So we were able to play off those characters. But you kind of go, huh, wow, all right. And he would just be very low key in rehearsal, and then he'd bring it all to the performance. So it was, thank God we had that. And I always tell anybody, regardless of what they do for a living, that they should get in an improv class. And people go, oh, I don't know if I could do that. It just so enhances your life, because not only can you get up there and all of a sudden things start happening, and it's great, and it's creating something out of nothing. And then I think it helps you in your life when you're just hanging out with people and doing stuff. So it's fun.
Yeah. And that's actually funny that you bring up improv. That's why some of the marquee wrestlers like John Cena, The Rock, Steve Austin have been able to transition to film, even not just comedies, but anything, because they are quality improvisers. The only thing so behind the curtain of wrestling, I don't really watch it much anymore, but I used to when I was younger. I was big Undertaker fan. The only thing they know in the script is the story points that are being presented,
right.
who they're fighting, and who wins. Everything else in between is 100% improvised.
Improvised.
Yeah.
Which, wow, I didn't know that. I mean, it seems like that's what it would be, but it's like you go, oh my God, it's, you know, it's like you were talking about Chris Guest. So much of what they do in, you know, that all of his movies is improvised. So he's got a lot of improv people. But I do think that does help enhance things. Although sometimes when they want you to stick to the script, like the writer's going, well, you know, the script person will come over and say, no, it was the instead of and you go, alrighty then, whatever.
Yeah. The article makes so much of a difference in this situation.
I know. Yeah, it does.
Oh gosh.
Here comes the prince.
Yeah. Emphasis really matters. So coming from an animation realm now, how is it weird seeing some of your co-workers, your co-stars working in live action? Like, my girlfriend's a huge fan of Parks and Rec. I love a lot of different shows, but Dan Castellaneta makes an appearance as he's the public radio host in Pawnee, and he's just got this nice mellow voice, and he's talking like this, and he's just very relaxed. And then of course Harry Shearer is in everything. My favorite Harry Shearer moment in film, for me, besides Spinal Tap, which is one of my favorite movies, is Handsome Dan from Wayne's World 2.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Like, it's funny because I hear his Simpsons characters in some of the little nuances of that. Do you ever catch yourself, like, if you see them in a live show, you're like, oh, I could hear him. That's this particular character, maybe a little bit.
And it was so funny because I literally saw Yardley Smith in a British play. That was the first time I ever saw it, before we were doing The Simpsons. And I went with, you know, this other producer that I was working with when we were writing radio and television. I said, you know, if this girl wasn't British, we could use her all the time. And then found out later she wasn't British. But she has done such a brilliant, and with a name like Yardley Smith, you would think, oh, she's British. So it was so wild because you looked at it and went, okay, yeah, you know what? And then we used her for some stuff, and then we ended up working together. And it's kind of like Nancy had worked with my husband, Hal, in a whole bunch of different cartoon series. And Hal will be able to tell you some of the things of G.I. Joe and, you know, Transformers, of the different directors that he has had. And some of the directors, like, you kind of go, wow, alrighty then. And I think because I had improv, that I can, you know, still kind of go, that, you know, I never thought about it like that. And that's what I say. I always tell people when somebody, you know, heavy Christian writer, whatever, and I was raised Catholic, so I figured I could do it. But yeah, so but they'll come to you and they'll say, well, I believe that blah, 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 blah. I guess we can do it, the Trump era now. I believe that, and I go, wow, you know, I never thought about it like that. And my undertone would be, and I never will. But then they like they're heard, and then you kind of go, I never thought about it like that. No, I didn't realize. I remember talking to someone about Adam and Eve, and then I said, and Cain and Abel, and then they said, well, we couldn't have come from monkeys. I said, all right. I said, so let me see, like, okay, so there's Adam and Eve, yeah, and then there's Cain and Abel, and then Cain kills Abel. Where'd the people come from? She goes, well, it was a different world then. I said, how different could it be? But, it was like, there's some of it you just like go, all right then, but they have to remember that for me, you know, well, they didn't know, but I grew up with a lot of Jesuits as well, that you would just get an argument with a Jesuit. That's when you really want to get a scholarly religious argument that you kind of go, whoa. Yeah. So anyway, what else?
So my brother went to a Jesuit high school. I went to Lasallian Brothers High School. So we had the two different Christian Catholic sects go against each other all the time.
Where'd you go to school?
So my brother went to Regis.
So, he did. Okay.
Yeah. So I'm born and raised in Denver. So I'm from here. So, so my brother went to Regis. I went to Mullen.
Oh my God.
Spencer and I have had the Mullen Cherry Creek conversation already. It's over. That rivalry ended when we became friends. We still have the Broncos Raiders rivalry that will never.
Right. Yeah. Right.
But she's your daughter is one of my favorite people in the whole world. So I I let the Raiders thing slide.
Yes, you have to. You know, and that's the thing. And to be fair, it was really from me that the whole Raiders thing happened, because when I was in LA, we had the Raiders and the Rams.
Yep.
Now the Rams were like, it was kind of like pablum. And so the Raiders seemed to me, you know, they would cheat on the you know, field and in the stands, and people were just gross. And I mean, it was like theater in the round.
Yep.
It really was theater in the round. And we would go down to the Coliseum to see the games. And I remember this, before I even thought about ever living in Denver, we would see Denver fans come there with, you know, the orange and the blue. And I was like thinking, you're going to die. You will be killed. What are you people thinking? I mean, and I was like going, oh my God, I'm going to be here when there's horrible bloodshed that happens. And so then when I moved here, and these were the days of Marcus Allen and all the guys that I saw from USC go to the Raiders, really back in the day, with a lot of really amazing football players. And I used to be a cheerleader, so for a Catholic boys' school, because I went to a Catholic girls' school. I, you know, so I understand it. I don't understand it as well as Spence does. I mean, she amazes me how much she knows of the background of all football. I said, you need to get on the, you know, be on the field talking about, well, you know, we remember the last time you guys were together. And I don't know if you ever saw that thing with Jerry Seinfeld. Have you seen his latest, where he talks about the, you know, the thing about what's the matter with you people? You're rooting for costumes. That's really it. They put on different outfits. And then he says, you know, somebody's going to feel rejected. I mean, I've got clothes in my closet that were rejected that I didn't wear them today. I mean, but it's all that stuff when everybody says, you know, you're so much about this one team, but then they go to another team and you go, I hate them now.
Yeah. Another comedian whose name slips my mind, he goes, any grown man who wears another man's jersey or another man's last name on his back deserves to be beat up. Because you're essentially saying that he owns you.
He owns you, yeah.
Yeah, I was like, that's pretty funny, actually.
Well, it's like, and I don't know if you've seen Yellowstone.
Oh, I haven't yet.
Oh my gosh, it's really good.
Okay.
But they brand people in Yellowstone.
Ooh.
You know, yeah. So they kind of he owns them. He owns you, baby.
He owns
you. Got a Yellowstone brand right here. But it's and that's actually there were a couple of series that we had seen. Longmire, which was really good. And then when I first saw Yellowstone, I thought I was trying to be Longmire. And then everybody said, no, you should stick with it. And now I guess they have the Peacock, that is one of the apps that you can see for free. Yep. So then they have all the Yellowstones on there. And so they have a cliffhanger that you just cannot believe. And you go, oh my God. And somebody said, is the series coming back? I said, it could or not. They went both ways with it. It can either absolutely or no way. It's been very successful, but you know, maybe people want to move on.
You know, and that's very true. That's another question I had. So you're on I think it is the longest running animated show in the history of television. That's great job security, but is it ever come to a point where like you're concerned, like the concern that it could end tomorrow? Go ahead. Sorry. No,
I was going to say that at one point, Matt Groening was in London, and they said to him, well, when do you think Simpsons will end? And he said, well, we're closer to the end than we are to the beginning. And that's what he said. And then they said on the London Times, Groening says Simpsons to end. So now when he says, what they said, when would you think it'll end? He goes, it's going to go on forever. That's what he says. But for me, see, I had a whole different boogie with them in that we all started out together. I was flying myself back and forth, and you can read partly about this, and then I'll only go into some of this because I'm still on the show. But when, you know, then I quit on the 10th year and I came back on the 13th. And it was because I was flying myself back and forth, and they weren't paying for flying because they were saying, why are you living where you're living? The irony now is that everybody's somewhere else. I mean, Harry's is in New Orleans, Hank Azaria's in New York, Julie's in Michigan, you know, and everybody else kind of, and I'm in Colorado, and just a couple of people are in LA, but again, they're not in the studio anymore. And even when we moved back to LA for 2 years, a couple of years ago, they said, oh, you don't have to come into the studio. And I want to see everyone. But it was, but that was back in the day where they just didn't want you to be away. you know.
Right.
So then I quit on the 13th year, or 10th year, and came back on the 13th because they had these little characters that they wanted to put in this environment. And they said, and the toy maker said, okay, well, if Maggie Roswell's voice isn't in there, then we just won't do those characters. So then they said, you want to do it from your house? So, so that's ended up how I came back. And it was really good because, you know, with everything that goes on with your insurance as actors, I mean, now, man, they've really, it used to be that when you were vested for 10 years, and you might see this whole kind of hubbub happening for Screen Actors Guild, when you were vested for 10 years, then you had insurance for the rest of your life, which was better than anybody ever could imagine.
Right.
Well, they just in between September and October said, you know, maybe not. We decided not to do that. So a lot of people were kind of cut free without being on the ice floe. So it was, you know, that is kind of, they're still in litigation on it, but actors like everybody else have got to worry about their insurance. And everybody goes, oh, they're making so much money. I go, oh, you'd be surprised.
Yeah.
But, so anyways, well, what else?
I have always been curious because I know that you play multiple characters and have done multiple things. Would you say you have a favorite character that you have ever played in anything from top to bottom? Which is it?
I would have to say playing Sherry Bobbins was the greatest moment. And I have done so many series and so much, and it's been amazing. But I remembered, you know, when I was a kid, I used to, whenever the Mary Poppins would come to the movie theater, you see it, which is once in a blue moon.
Mm-hmm.
Now, when Spence and I, when she was, you know, when I was first doing it, they had it on tape or whatever. So I could watch it again and again and again, but it was the only vocal impression I ever did. And so I was just understudying the music. They said, well, Maggie, come in and sing the music, and then we'll have there, because they were going to have Julie Andrews do it.
Right.
And then last minute, Julie Andrews decided that she didn't know she was going to do another Mary Poppins. So she ended up not doing it, which was really sad because then she'd gotten surgery and her voice was never the same.
Mm-hmm.
But it was so amazing for me to sing those songs and to play her that it was just mind blowing. And I was up for it. I had an Emmy and an Annie nomination for playing that. I didn't get the award, but I thought it was brilliant. No, but but it was still one of the favorite things that I ever did. And you know, all of the characters I do love, every single part of each one, because they're so much a part of me now. You know, Miss Hoover was created because they did a show where Marge is painting a picture of Mr. Burns. And so they, you know, and she also did one of Ringo. But this woman walks out of the crowd and says, he's bad, but he'll die. He's bad. Yeah, he's bad, but he'll die. So that was it. And then they came to me later and said, could you, we want to make this, you know, one of the teachers, Miss Hoover, can you create that character on that line? Why, sure I can. Of course I can. So then Miss Hoover was born, but they did so much. And I remember one where they had Lisa saying something about getting a B, and, you know, and like she got a B+, and then she goes, oh, no, that must be the Drambuie. And then it was a C. And so I had Drambuie during lunch. So then, you know, okay, well, I guess I'm a drinker. But they have more, like I said, there's going to be more in depth this season or next season on Miss Hoover than you've ever seen before. You really get a backstory to her, which has been really fun.
That's awesome. I love that they're creating new characters and still developing the storyline and making it further and further, pushing it to a new, I guess, a new audience as well.
Right.
I mean, as long as the show's been running, you have your standstill fans like myself and others who've kind of watched it develop and grow over the years. How do you think it's now attaching to a new audience, this new generation of fan, I guess?
Well, I think that what they've done, which is really smart, and that's where they add me into a lot of the things, is that it does take a year for them to bring everything back, and then we do ADR at the very end. But a lot of times, some of the they'll leave about 5 minutes or whatever for them to be able to kind of dink with everything in the show so they can make it look more current. So that's, I think, one of the ways that they've done it, to be able to see that, you know, things currently are happening, but it's, you know, it's not initially in that initial storyline. So that's what's really a trip. I think that's how they've hooked people a lot. And I think they've gotten back to a lot of the heart of the show. There was kind of in between the first 10 years, it was really fantastic. Then some other people were taking over, writers were leaving, and then writers ended up coming back because they thought there were so many things they could do in The Simpsons. Like they can go to the moon, they can go here, they can do whatever they want to do. And you never have to be like you are in a sitcom or whatever. You know, if you're going to shoot at the airport, it's going to take you forever. This way in animation, in this world, they can do anything, you know, so that I think to them has brought everybody back. And they, you know, Al Jean, who is the head producer, and Matt Groening make sure that everything is really, you know, that they get it right down to the finest degree. And I don't know, there's one of the writers, Mike Reese, who wrote a book about Springfield. And he is, when you see that book and look it up, and I think it's something with Springfield. I'll have to get
What's
it
out. His name
again? Okay, Mike Reese's book. Look up Mike Reese and see what it says.
Mike Reese here. Oh, that's the wrong Mike Reese. Is it like Reese's Pieces?
No. It's really it's the Simpsons book. Mike Reese and Matt Klickstein wrote it. Say, who wrote a book? What did Mike Reese and Matt Klickstein write about Springfield or about The Simpsons?
Let's see what we got here. Springfield Confidential by Mike Reese.
Yes, it is brilliant. And
Yep.
so Springfield Confidential, it's like the best. And even if you're not like, at first when I was reading it, I thought, well, you'd have to be kind of a big fan. But no, it gives you so much backstory that I didn't even know. Things of how they come up with a line. I mean, really how they're wringing their necks into the end of the night, trying to just get this one line. I mean, you know, it's really brilliant how they put it together. And it's just amazing to me, a lot of it that I never knew. And that really was exactly, you know, because also the actors that are on the show, and we really do a lot of acting on the show and people get so upset with voice people, like, oh, they're voice people, but the acting on the show gets very deep. And one of the, it was described in the LA Times at one point that it's like a lasagna, you know, it just, you know, it has levels of everything. Mm-hmm. And you can look at a lot of those shows and they hold up, you know, which is really kind of wild that they still make people laugh. But I laughed when I first moved to Denver. I remember people would say, well, what do you do? And I said, well, I'm in the business. And they go, well, what business? Which is what, you know, because I was in LA for so long. I grew up in LA, 7 generations from LA. So it's like, I was like, well, the business, it's a show business. And then when I would say that I'm doing The Simpsons, they go, oh, what characters do you do? And I go, Helen Lovejoy, Reverend Lovejoy's wife, Mad Flanders, Miss Hobo is his teacher, Dolphin and Junior Boy's friends, Melfish Builders, other male, Princess Cashmere, real name is Shauna Tifton, the head of Kitty Carlisle match game 2010, all the old people in the old folks home with Grandpa, and Sherry Bobbins, also in Llewellyn Van Houten, Millhouse's mother. And they'd go, oh, well, I don't really watch the show. And you're just like totally mortified. And then you go, okay, great. So glad I did that. And then they said, well, I don't watch it. I don't let my kids watch it. Then people would come up to me, the kids, and they would say, well, I went over to my friend's house and I started to watch the show. And then when I was in high school, I watched it. When we were in college, everybody would stop everything and watch The Simpsons. Then when I went to law school, we all said, okay, Simpsons are on. And then I got married and my wife and I would watch it and we had kids and now we don't let them watch it. I said, it's come full circle. It's really good. That's how long I've been doing the show. Like you realize, oh my God, I've been doing the show for so many years and now, oh my dear God, it's unbelievable.
What brought you guys to Colorado? What in particular transitioned you from living in Los Angeles to coming to
Well, it's funny because, you know, what really pushed me there were the riots in Colorado. And we just had Spence and we were just like, oh my God, you know what, we got to get out of here.
Yeah.
And my sister lived in Colorado. So I thought, okay, well, we'll look at it. And then Hal had said, you know, if you know for NBC, they used to go bung, bung, bung.
Mm-hmm.
And what that used to be is that was syncing of the West Coast to the East Coast back in the day. And Denver was where that happened, the bung, bung, bung. So we said, well, let's go there. At the time, they were doing Father Dole Mysteries and a bunch of TV shows that were here. And I thought, oh my God, well, I can go there, I can live there, we can do stuff. I'll just fly myself back and forth to do The Simpsons, which was such a great concept. Well, then all the TV went out of here. And then I was doing The Simpsons, and then we started kind of getting everything done in here. But I think the best thing for me was raising Spence here because, you know, we were in Homestead in this little, you know, a cul-de-sac, and Hal had come from a town of 1,200 in Indiana. Me, I was from LA, so, you know, it was great. Here I was just a soccer mom. I loved all the moments. And so when Spence went to college was when somebody said, well, you guys going to move back to LA? I said, why? And then we went to a Comic-Con, and Hal saw all of his friends from Transformers, G.I. Joe. I mean, you know, he did Muppets. He did so many shows. And then all of a sudden he thought, oh my God, I missed this. So we just all of a sudden turned around, moved back to LA. Well, I was kind of the bull in the china shop that went, fine, because Spencer was already in college. We go back there for 2 years. And then I ran away and ran back to here. So we've been here for like 6 years. Because I thought, oh, no. I was in LA my whole life. And people go, oh my God. It's like when people say, yeah, I really hate snow in the winter. I said, you know, there's a coast out there that has your name on it.
Yeah.
Because I love the Four Seasons in Colorado. And I lived in New York. I lived in Manhattan. And the cold that's in Manhattan is so much more intense than it is in Denver. You know?
Yeah. So you guys were in Homestead? When I was in high school, I lived so Homestead, for those of you who don't know, is an area in Centennial Littleton area in Colorado. It's this nice little, my mom's best friend lived in Homestead. So really? I spent a lot of time at Homestead Pool. But I lived on the other side of Holly, on Arapahoe and Holly, right down the way. So we were neighbors.
Yeah.
I worked at that.
Probably swimming in the pool where Spencer was swimming.
Yeah, probably. And I worked at the Hollywood Video that was just down the street. I worked there in the video game store there.
Videos from you.
No, you probably did. There's a good chance you guys did. It's a small world. How small it gets. How small.
I know it really does. It's so true. So that's where we grew. You know, where Spence grew up, and it was kind of like being in Grover's Corners. You know, it was like, and people say, well, what's it like? You know, for you to come from a big city? I said, I couldn't be happier. You know, although all the children are perfect, it's like all the things that you hear where everybody's perfect, and it's like you go, not really. So when people would be the way that they would be, and I would just like go, when I first went to a Cherry Creek, when I think it was a dance or whatever, and all these limos are pulling up. And I said to someone, I haven't seen when I was in limos going to openings and all of that stuff. Spence and I were in the limo going to the Simpsons premiere party for the movie.
Right. I
never saw as many limos as I saw at Cherry Creek for a dance. I went, well, what do you do? It's like when you're, you know, and I grew up in a.
Oh, I lost you.
Oh, are you still there? That was my daughter Spencer calling me. I should say, get out of here. I'm talking to Michael. But anyways, my brain. Okay, what was I talking about?
So limos at Cherry Creek.
Limos at Cherry Creek. And, you know, just like that you would get a BMW when you were 16. And then I said, well, what happens? You get a Maserati when you're 21. But I grew up in Hancock Park in Los Angeles, which is a very affluent, I guess, neighborhood.
Right.
But, you know, for us, my dad was from Michigan, Detroit. So he was more that Midwest ethic, like, oh no, you'll share your mother's duster. So we shared my mom's duster, all 5 kids. And you just went, there's a good car. So when I saw these kids doing this thing, I went, all right, well, anyways. So hey, Spencer just said, whoops, you might be doing your interview. I'll call you later.
I'm leaving that in. I'm leaving it in. She has to see it.
Yes, you have
to. I'm leaving it in. No, and Mullen was the same way. So I got a car that was, let's see, I was in high school 2000 and 2001 to 2005. So I got my car in 2003, and it was a 1998. So I would park my 98 Nissan next to somebody's 2003 BMW in the same parking lot. And we went to the same high school. So, you know, it's that same concept. Like Cherry Creek was the same way. Now, I will admit this now because the statute of limitations has run out. I did at one time or another put Mullen honor student stickers on some very nice Cherry Creek cars when I was a freshman. For those people who still don't know me, I don't apologize.
I don't apologize for a thing.
But it's interesting. So I have friends who have moved from here to Los Angeles. Some of them are pursuing careers in film, television, and acting in general. But to kind of tie it into the voice acting side, I know it's a very narrow group. Like there's not a lot of people who are in the voice acting community. It seems like very close-knit, like almost like a family in a sense. What advice, if any, would you give to anybody who's trying to get into that field?
Well, see, I think right now they have places here like the Denver Center or some people that that do teach voiceover classes and stuff like that. You have to have your own studio. You just have to. Now you do. So you can't, you know, you have to have a good microphone. The agents expect you to be able to have Source Connect, which is expensive. It's an expensive thing to get into. So I would say do improv classes and acting classes and read as much as you can, because you'd be surprised at how many people can't really read, you know, I mean, and, you know, you read, but you don't read and listen to your own voice. And then, you know, a lot of people, if they have, like, if they have the chops, like someone I worked with the other day, I usually kind of like put people other places and people that I know, someone had wanted to work with me. And he actually had his own studio, did the thing very similar to what you have. And that helped. But for him, for what, you know, I charge, and then another friend of mine charges, you know, it's expensive if you're going to work with someone. It's so much easier, like when we can get back to working with other humans, than if you can go to, like, if you were here to Denver Center, or if you were in LA, they have a whole bunch of great voiceover classes. You know, people go, well, I don't really need a voiceover class, but it's so interesting because I came from doing television. And so when I first got into voiceover, I literally, someone saw me on the Tim Conway show and they heard my gravelly voice and they said they wanted to use me for a commercial. And so I did, I did a commercial for Jack in the Box, and I said, white meat. And that was what I said. All of a sudden, all this money comes in from this Jack in the Box commercial. I said, oh, this is so the way to go. Because I was also doing on-camera commercials. I was like the counter girl. I mean, I went all the way up, the mom, all the way. And I thought, you know, I'm not going to do a Depends ad. That you're just it's not going to happen. So, and a lot of like, or else one of those ads now, which I could probably get, where you're walking along and they go, this drug may kill you and put your head, and then you'll die. Or you can get, you know, so you like go, oh my God, okay. But I could be one of those people just looking, hi, honey. Yeah, we're taking the drug that could kill us. Okay. But I mean, that's, so when someone had seen me, and then I thought, oh my God, this is great. So I ended up getting an agent because I had my on-camera agent, and I was making boatloads of money for the on-camera agent. And then they had a voiceover agent in there. So they signed me, and I thought, well, it's going to be a piece of cake. But I always tell people it's rather interesting as you start, like then I started studying with everyone, because I was getting all the way to the end, but I wasn't booking any of these jobs. And I thought, wow, that is so crazy. Well, I realized, like I say, if you were just reading as an actor, you go, the cat ran down the street. And then they go, okay, so can you do that again? But can you put a smile on your voice? The cat ran down the street. Okay, can you make it a little lighter? The cat ran down the street. Okay, can you emphasize the cat? The cat ran down the street. Okay, don't sound so sad about it. The cat ran down the street. You know, about a million ways, here comes the prince. But you realize that there are different ways to have to do it. And you realize everybody wants it a different way. And so to be able to be directed and to be able to utilize your voice in that way. I always tell people, take voiceover classes anyway, because no matter what you do in your life, it's still going to be great. I mean, you're still going to utilize your voice. And you can really kind of hone in on what you do and how you articulate, because there are people doing things now that it's generational, but it kills me. And I said Spencer, and I said to Spence, I said, oh my God, you know, you do this. So kitten. I have a kitten. And I go, no, it's kitten. She said, kitten. You go, kitten, or mountain. In the mountains today. And they say it on the news, in the mountains today. And they also say, I didn't mean to do it. No, it's a contraction. Didn't, did not, didn't, but they go, didn't, couldn't.
Yeah.
Couldn't. But it is generational. At first I thought, oh, it was from Colorado. But when we moved back to LA and, you know, there for a couple of years, it's all of you people. You have to learn to, you know, you're going to need to know contractions.
Right.
Tell it to your people.
I actually took a voiceover class as part of my education at the Colorado Media School with Lee Helmer, if you know who she is. She's fantastic. She's the reason why I talk so well on audio, actually. That's one of the funny things is, like, I learned to be able to differentiate structure. My problem is consistency and being able to do it for durations. So I can do a great voice for 1 or 2 takes and then it starts to slip. And that's why I need to work on that portion of it. But I also have a different voice that I use for when I'm broadcasting football, baseball, soccer, sports versus what I do on the podcast. I have a different intonation.
What do you do give me some of your football voice.
So I kind of bring it here and push it from, like, essentially more projection, a little more aggressive, and sometimes I get high pitched and it's a touchdown. Like, you know, you push from different places. I learned that skill from singing, though. So from being able to sing, I learned how to manipulate my voice to create different tonalities. I emphasize words weird when I sing, and it's been pointed out to me my entire career. I've been in and out of bands for 22 years now, which makes me feel old, even though I know I'm not.
How old are you?
I'm 34. So.
Oh my God, 34.
I'm so old. But it's funny because, like, I'll just walk around the house and occasionally, like, I'll slip a German accent and I'll just be like, oh, you know, everything's fine. Don't worry about it. It's going to be great. Lederhosen, you know, just be funny.
That is so good.
Yeah. It's easy too, because it's just, you know, a slight, I've learned that it's all about, you know, tongue placement, lip placement, throat positioning.
And I was a singer as well, or am a singer, I suppose. And so I was able to do that. I used to watch cartoons. So that was how I first started, was, you know, Yosemite Sam was the whole reason that I was able to do that accent. Pepe Le Pew, bon. You know, all of that I realized that's where I first learned dialects. So that really helped me. And that also was helping during doing improv. But I'll tell you, it is definitely great to be a part of. And because you've already got the studio and you've already got a good voice, you definitely could. And for men, it's, you know, you have a really long career and your voice only gets better and deeper. So it would behoove you to kind of get into voiceover as well, doing voiceover stuff, because you realize that, you know, I mean, it used to be kind of closed, but now that people are all over the world, you know, it opened everything up. So there's ways that you've got agents here in Colorado that are working with people all different places. And then you just doing the podcast is one of those things that can help you start to for people to know you as a voice person, you know? So I would give it a shot.
I've thought about it. And now that I'm investing more in making sure I have like a home studio. And I mean, we live in a 2-bedroom apartment in the heart of downtown Denver. So I can probably make a space somewhere in this apartment that I can create something. I am going to have Hal on the podcast at some point. I need to call him. That's the reference he told me, is I need to call him. So I will make that phone call.
So perfect, because Spencer was going, Dad, he tried to get a hold of you and he couldn't get a hold of you. And he was like, okay, I'm sorry. And I said, you know, I always say that I'm his personal secretary, because I go, well, tell Michael to call me. And then I'll say to him, you know, oh yeah, okay. Because he's been in his book like this. And then I go, did you know that so-and-so, you know, contacted you? No. When? Oh. Because also we do, to be fair, we do get a lot of people that will email us constantly on things. And you kind of like look really fast. And, Spence had said it was you. There are other people that have said, can you come on my podcast? And I go, have you guys, because there's, it's really dependent, because a lot of people just have a podcast. You like go, okay, I'm gonna make a podcast today. But it's not like this, especially when I saw that you were an artist doing all the stuff that you're doing. It really, I got excited to be on your show just because you go, it's like you're part of the tribe. You're like part of our entertainment tribe. Yeah. So it's really exciting, and it's really, I wanted to be supportive of you doing this because, the thing I love about being able to do my characters is now that I'm 68 and I started the show 33 years ago, you realize that I can still do them forever. Right. Harry Shearer is 70 something now. He's got to be like late 70s, I would think. And it's mind blowing to me what we do. And Nancy's almost my age. So she plays Bart Simpson. Bart Simpson can, is going to be, and I play all the other boys too. So, hey, Bart, don't be a butthead, because all of our voices never change. Right. So they couldn't cast anybody whose voice was going to change. So we get to do that, man. But what I can't do is like the little princess voices. Sometimes they would want me to do a princess voice. I go, baby, there's a princess out there for you, but I'm not her. Unless she's like ballsy princess. Maybe she's the paper bag princess. That's what I would do better at.
And that's funny because
I can do a little kid voice all day long. It doesn't matter. It's fine with me. I can do it all day.
I can throw it back down, make it very little. I have a 6-octave range voice when I actually warm up and do everything properly, drink enough water, cut out caffeine for a couple of days. I can do some things with my voice, but it's the consistency. That's the one thing. So I have a couple friends, like I said, who are in the voice acting industry. They mostly do dubs of anime and things of that nature. And I've sent them reels of they've given me scripts to test. And I've sent them different characters, different voices, different structures. And they say, it's like here, but to get here, you're going to need a little extra work. You need to put in the time, put in the work, find ways to make it more plausible. And the difference is my investment right now is in this podcast and my music, because those are the things that I've built on my own. And I would love to continue to build more and more and maybe get into getting into voice acting is something I've always thought about doing. It's something I've always wanted to do, but I don't think I think I was holding myself back from that by not investing the time and effort. But now that I'm investing the money into building a little bit more of an actual studio and getting improved equipment to make things better, I think maybe investing in other skills on top of that and utilizing what I've learned over the years to try something different and in turn maybe give me another opportunity is something I'm definitely interested in. So I'm really happy you came on too. I was like, when I asked Spencer, I was like, is there any way that your mom and dad would be willing to come on my podcast? And I was hesitant at first as well, because talking to other people who've created podcasts in the past, there's generally a mark with podcasts. Right. If you make 10, but you don't make 11, you're never going to continue. They say if you make 10 episodes, you will make enough content for 10 episodes, but then you have to keep going. Right. And I hit episode 11 and I was like, all right, let's do this. I have now recorded, including this one, I've recorded 24 and I'm I released episode 20 this Friday. So yesterday. And that's the thing. It's I now have a rhythm. I as soon as I took Thanksgiving off to do my own thing, be with my family, or actually my girlfriend's family. But we decided, I decided I was going to take that week off to kind of recharge my batteries, not have to, because I do everything. I edit, I interview, I schedule. I'm my own agent. That's good. Yeah. So I know who I'm getting. And also I'm taking risks with this. So I've asked people that I know don't even need to know that I am who I am. And I will be like, hey, so I have this podcast. I can send you a link to what it is. You can tell me if you want to be on it or not, but I'd love to have you on. And I've learned that rejection is part of the business. You will,
Oh, yeah.
you will get more no's than yeses, no matter how many times you try to do this. And the best part is like, I'm working towards like getting bigger and bigger guests. And that's the objective of any podcast. But I also love talking to my friends. I have a lot of friends who are musicians, who are actors and actresses who just do this for fun and like enjoyed the fact that I was willing to have them on, to have a platform to talk. And I love talking. It's what I do. I got in trouble for it in school all the time.
Well, that's, we were talking about that the other day, that when all the animation people, everybody was the one that used to make noises in the back of the room when they were in school. And that was all of us. So when you get on an animation show, all the people sitting there, the director's more like the teacher going, come on, people, because people go, watch me pull a rabbit out of my hat. Again, nothing up my sleeve, presto. All of this stuff that you would just hear from all these people doing all these things. And they were so, come on, could we focus for a second? So you feel like you're 5 years old in class going, yeah, all right, teacher, but forget about it.
Well, we are at the hour mark. Thank you so much for being on here. This is the part of the show where I give the floor to you to promote anything you want to promote, anything you have going on. Everything that is mentioned here will be in the description below or in the description of your podcast. Maggie, right now, the floor is yours.
Oh, boy. All right, people. Here's what you can do. I'm getting all my social media back together. Well, kind of together. In fact, I just got an email when we were on here that I have a YouTube channel. So that has all these old television shows that I used to do. And MaggieRoswell.com, which is where you can see a lot of the other things that I've done. But the on-camera stuff makes me laugh because there's some of this stuff that I haven't seen in forever. And I went, we've got to push this up to the top. So that will be like released in this next week or so. Well, you'll see more things, and IMDb the same way. But for me, I guess it's, all the Simpsons stuff. When you see the new things coming up for Miss Hoover and there'll just be, there's a musical. There is a musical that is coming up. And I can't tell you what musical it is, but it was one that I was not familiar with. And so the creators of this decided that they would do this takeoff on this musical. So I kind of knew the musical, but it was enough that I couldn't remember the notes, but I could kind of remember them. Well, they decided that Helen Lovejoy should be the one that was singing, which makes her a soprano. Well, I'm a mezzo belter, so I did the Sherry Bobbins and I was able to kind of push it up a little bit, but this was very high. So after 3 hours of doing the session, they said, do you want to keep going? I said, no, we can pick this up. But my vocal cords were like bloody by that time. But also it's because most of my characters, I've never, I haven't in so long had to vocalize to get to have any kind of second soprano sound, whatever that would be. Mm-hmm. So you can see that coming up. They'll promote a musical that everybody from the town. So I had to do Helen Lovejoy as a teenager and as an adult. So they come back to do this musical. But they do flashbacks of when they were doing it when they were kids. So you'll see a musical coming up, and yeah, baby, you'll know that I bled for that one. I did. But so that's it. And then just everything. And please, everybody know that there's someone that everybody, I did have something on Facebook, which is very true. They said, we're all in this together. And somebody said, yeah, but some people, we're all in this boat together, but some people are with yachts and some people are barely hanging on. So just make sure that you're kind to everybody, just because it's crazy right now. It's crazier than I have ever seen in 68 years. And we used to say, we're just getting old, but everybody's dealing with this madness. And so just be good to each other, because that's all I gotta say. Be good. Do good.
I completely agree. One of the things we've said in the last few episodes is just be good to each other. Understand that we need to continue to work together and aim to make the world a better place. And I am a huge fan and advocate of that mindset as well. Maggie, thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you, Michael. This was a blast.
So fun. I had great, and the funny thing is I didn't even get into Tim Conway, which I wanted to do. I love Tim Conway. He's one of my all-time favorites. And Pretty in Pink. But maybe we can do this again sometime down the road and we'll have another conversation.
We'll do it. Or we could do it now if you want to. And then you can add it in if you want to.
Oh man, you know what? I got time.
Okay.
So I know Tim Conway from the Carol Burnett show, growing up watching a ton of PBS. It was like Carol Burnett, Mr. Bean. And like he also, he was also a much older man for me in my generation, and seeing him in man, jumps out of my head every time, but I know I've seen him. He's one of those character actors you see everywhere. He's like Stephen Tobolowsky of the 70s and 80s and 90s. What was that experience like working on his show?
Well, it was wild because, like I said, we have been improvising stuff. I didn't find out, and this is kind of crazy, until they did one of those History Channel things on Tim Conway, and they actually had me in it where I was singing some song or whatever on the show. And it was crazy because he was going through quite a lot, a divorce during that time. And he was a little bit more cut off than I think, or he would joke a lot and not be like you'll find that with a lot of comics. Some comics don't have a real moment when you're talking to them. They're always joking, hey, how you doing? But it's all of our defense mechanism of what we do. But it really was amazing to work with Harvey Korman and to work with Tim Conway and Jack Riley, who used to be Mr. Carlin on the Bob Newhart show. Mm-hmm. And those guys were amazing. And some of the guests that they had on were amazing. But it was, we only ran 13 weeks. And that was always the big joke, that all of Tim Conway's things have only gone 13 weeks. But he was like the second banana on the show. So we were like the third bananas. Instead of him playing off of Carol, we would be playing off of him. So it was, but you can see on the YouTube channel, you'll see some of the Tim Conway stuff. So it's pretty funny. And they have a thing on there where we do New York, and they had the Don Crichton dancers, which they would never have today because they were all like 7 and 8 year olds that were dressed like, John Benet Ramsey. So
yeah, true.
That was, it was kind of crazy doing that. But I remember when I was 27 years old and I was at Los Angeles City College. And I was in the green room and I said, someday, like when I'm like 27, I'm going to be just like Carol Burnett. And on my 27th birthday, Harvey Korman was, because we went out and said goodnight, Harvey Korman here, Tim here, it's Maggie Roswell's 27th birthday. And Joe Hamilton, Carol's husband, was in the booth. And I just thought, oh my God. And like you think, you never think your dreams will come true. And I thought, well, this is it. But this is not it. It can't be it. But you realize that, especially as actors, that you keep going the next step and then the next step and then the next step. So right now, in particular, during this pandemic, we're used to it. We never have a job, and then you have a job and then your job's gone. Like for instance, on The Simpsons, I am not a regular. They consider me a day player for 33 years. So you never know where your next job is coming from. So you're always reinventing yourself, which is what I love about you, of what you're doing with doing the podcast and this and music and all of this stuff. You have to keep reinventing. You have to keep creating. So that's really, really important. But I think we're used to downtime. So you kind of go, oh, we're at your house. I'm at my house all this time. Yeah, that makes sense. Yep. I'll work out a little or watch TV. But I never watch TV now. It's so funny between in the morning, like I can't watch morning TV. I have to watch starting at like 4:30. I can watch television. But because as an actor, you could watch it all day. You go, I got to be doing something.
That's
okay,
very,
and then Pretty
very
in
true.
Pink.
And then Pretty in Pink. That's an iconic film for multiple generations.
Right.
It's a little late for me. I think it came out the year I was born. So 1986. But how was it working on a John Hughes film? Like I feel like that's got to be iconic.
So much fun. And that, when I got to meet him, and he was really great. And being Mrs. Dietz, her gym teacher, I hope her breasts fall off, Miss Dietz. All of that stuff. It was so fun, but a perfect example of improvising. So Howie Deutsch was the director for that. And so when we started, I said, hey, how about if when I come in, I call off names? And so I was calling off friends of mine's names as I was coming in. I went, Northland, my old boyfriend, Fasano, which was my sister's married name. So I call off all those names are people that I knew. So that was really kind of fun because I said, well, shouldn't we be doing like roll call? And they said, sure, here. So those were like a moment where you go, okay, I have a pre-life of walking in instead of just walking up to her doing stuff. But it made me get into this whole thing.
Right.
But that was really a trip. The other one, which was like the actor's nightmare, I did a movie with, oh God, what was the name of it? I can't remember. I'll have to remember that, and we'll talk about it the next time.
I have your IMDb right here if you want me to.
I know, but this one you wouldn't have seen because they ended up not making it a musical.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, but it's called something with Nick Nolte and Julie Kavner was in it, and so it was supposed to be. They wanted it to be a musical, and there was one moment where they're opening it up and the three girls are singing, and then they're going to have all these people, and it's the three of us. And I had worked with Carole King before when I first did the Tracy Ullman show, which is actually where they saw me for The Simpsons.
Okay.
But she taught us like a little ditty, and then all of a sudden they start rolling the cameras. I went, whoa, you know what? Wait, I don't know this. What do you mean? What are you doing? And it was so crazy because it's every actor's nightmare. Like they'll roll the camera and you won't know what you're doing. And I had it. It happened.
That's terrifying. Oh man.
That's
why I like shooting music videos, because we just know what we have to do. The worst part is about shooting a music video when you're a vocalist is shooting like just the standalone shots in downtown Denver where you're essentially lip syncing to a track and people don't know what you're doing. I was on Snapchats. I was on Instagram. I'm pretty sure I was on TikTok. Like I couldn't find anything because I didn't know what to look for, but like I saw people doing a lot of this, like,
What's
and
he doing? He's talking to himself
in front of a camera. And there's a guy walking around doing a lot of this and a lot of this. And he's like, is he on something? What's happening?
What's the matter with him? And they're filming him. That's so sad that they're filming this guy that's like on drugs. Oh my God.
That's probably what it looks like.
Oh man.
Oh man. Well, yes, we should definitely do this again. Let Hal know. I'll give him a call here probably in the next couple weeks. It's going to be more than likely after the holidays, just because I got to do stuff for the holidays. I have to get ready for actually getting able to see some family for the first time.
I think it would be a good idea.
So, yes. But Maggie, thank you so much again.
Thanks so much.
Definitely. Talk to you soon. I'll let Spencer know when the episode is going to be up so that we can all figure it out and get together and talk about it some more.
Perfect.
All right.
Love it. Okay, see you later.
Take care. Peace.
Bye, Michael. Wait
Bye.
a minute. Oh, yeah, leave things.
It almost feels like someone else is living my life. 'Cause it almost feels